I told myself I'd keep things simple, quiet mornings, steady work, no distractions. Then she moved in upstairs. The first time I saw her, she was standing on the porch, holding a box that looked too heavy for her to carry. She didn't ask for help. She just looked at it for a moment, then at me, and smiled, like she already knew I'd offer anyway. There was something about her stillness. The way she didn't rush, didn't fill silence with empty words. Mid-40s, maybe, though that didn't seem to mean much. Everything about her felt measured, her voice, her movements, even the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, as if the gesture had been rehearsed and perfected years ago. "Could you?" she started, nodding toward the box. "Yeah," I said, a little too quickly. The porch creaked under us as I lifted it from her arms. My hands brushed hers, not by accident, but not on purpose either. Warm, soft, cool around the fingertips. I remember how she didn't pull away right away. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice low enough that I had to lean in just a little. That became the rhythm of our days, her quiet presence above mine. I'd hear her walking across the floorboards late at night. A light, slow rhythm like someone pacing to think. Once, she hummed along to an old record, something slow and full of ache. I stood under the vent, listening longer than I should have. Then one evening, I caught her in the hallway. She'd dropped her keys. We both bent down at the same time. Our shoulders brushed. Her perfume, something faint and warm, like amber and rain, caught me off guard. "Sorry," she murmured, not really moving away. "It's fine," I said, though my heart didn't agree. We both stood there a moment too long, neither saying anything. The hallway light flickered once, the air between us strangely alive. That night, I found myself listening again. Not to the music this time, but to silence, and the quiet, impossible awareness that she was just above me, probably reading, probably barefoot, maybe thinking about something she'd never say out loud. Days blurred like that, short talks on the porch, passing glances in the stairwell, her soft good morning that somehow felt heavier each time. She never flirted. She didn't have to. Her restraint did it for her. One afternoon, she knocked on my door. A light tap, hesitant. "Do you happen to have a screwdriver?" I nodded, though I didn't trust my voice enough to answer. Upstairs, her apartment smelled like coffee and something floral. The window was open, the curtain moving just slightly in the breeze. She led me to a loose cabinet handle, kneeling to show me. When I crouched beside her, our knees brushed. Neither of us moved away this time. She laughed quietly, the first real laugh I'd heard from her. "I should have called maintenance," she said. "I'm cheaper," I said, and she smiled at that, eyes soft but unreadable. The screwdriver slipped once, and she reached out to steady my hand. Her fingers lingered, cool skin, light pressure, but it was enough to stop everything around us. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. When I finally looked up, she was already watching me. Her lips parted like she might say something, maybe don't, maybe stay. Then the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. A neighbor's door opened. She blinked, pulled her hand back, stood quickly, clearing her throat. "Thank you," she said again, too formal, too quick, and for the first time, she couldn't quite meet my eyes. I set the screwdriver down on her counter, nodded once, and turned for the door. She didn't stop me. But when I looked back, just before leaving, she was still standing there, her hand resting where mine had been, as if trying to remember what it felt like. And that was the moment I knew, keeping my distance was already impossible. She started leaving her window open when it rained. I told myself it was coincidence, that she liked the sound, the air. But some nights, when the rain softened to a whisper, I could hear her moving inside. Sometimes humming. Sometimes pacing. Sometimes nothing but quiet. A few days after the cabinet, she invited me up again. "It's leaking under the sink," she said, holding a dish towel, eyes tired but still composed. I wasn't sure if she really needed help, or just company that didn't ask for much. Her kitchen was warm this time, sunlight folding across the counter. She'd been baking, or trying to. The smell of butter and burnt sugar clung to the air. You cook? I asked, crouching to check the pipe. Not lately, she said, leaning on the counter. Used to. My ex-husband was the kind who liked dinner waiting when he got home. Old habit. She said it like it was nothing, but her voice caught slightly at the end. I glanced up, she looked away, tracing the rim of a coffee mug with her thumb. What about you? She asked after a pause. Someone waiting for you somewhere. I shook my head. No one, I said, a little too fast. Lucky you, she said softly. But her smile didn't match her words. I tightened the pipe and stood. She stepped closer to check, her shoulder almost brushing mine. The space between us felt deliberate, fragile, like a wire pulled tight. Her hair brushed against my arm when she leaned over. The scent of her, clean soap, faint vanilla, made it impossible to look away. Seems fine now, I murmured, though I wasn't looking at the pipe anymore. Good, she said, but she didn't move right away. Her hand rested on the counter beside mine, close enough that our knuckles nearly touched. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then she stepped back, shaking her head slightly. You shouldn't have to keep fixing things for me. I don't mind, I said. I know, she whispered. That night, I thought about what she'd said, about the ex-husband, the dinners waiting, the way she said used to like she'd used up all the softness she once had. Maybe that's why she kept to herself. Maybe that's why she smiled like it cost her something. The next morning, she was on the porch again, barefoot, watering a plant that looked half dead. The air was still cool, her robe tied loosely around her waist. You up early, I said. So are you, she answered, glancing up. Her voice was still rough from sleep. She handed me the watering can without asking, her fingers brushing mine, light, casual, but deliberate. Maybe it'll come back, she said, looking at the wilted leaves. Maybe, I said. But we both knew she wasn't just talking about the plant. She looked up then, really looked. The kind of look that holds a question it's too early to ask. And in that quiet, with the sunlight catching the edge of her hair, I forgot every reason I'd promised myself to keep my distance. She took the can back, her hand still brushing mine, just long enough to leave the ghost of warmth behind. Neither of us said another word. We didn't need to, the air between us already said everything we couldn't. It happened on a Thursday evening, one of those late spring nights where everything feels too quiet to trust. She'd asked if I could help move a few boxes. Old things, she'd said over the phone. I just need another pair of hands. When I arrived, the lights in her apartment were low, warm. A record played somewhere, slow jazz, a little scratchy. The smell of rain drifted in from the open window. Sorry, she said when I stepped inside. I didn't mean for it to get this late. It's fine, I said, but the word felt wrong. Nothing about being here felt fine. It felt like standing too close to something burning and pretending not to notice. We worked quietly. She handed me boxes from the hallway closet, our fingers brushing each time. She didn't pull away anymore, not quickly, at least. This one's heavier, she said, and I reached over before she could lift it. Our hands overlapped. For a second, neither of us moved. Her eyes flicked up to mine, brief, startled, then softer. Thanks, she whispered, though the word came out unsteady. We carried the box together, setting it down beside the couch. She laughed, quietly, nervously, and brushed her hair back. I should have done this months ago. Maybe you were waiting for help, I said. She smiled at that, but didn't look away. The song changed, a slower tune now, something about time slipping through your hands. She sat on the arm of the couch, the light catching on her collarbone. I stood beside her, pretending to look at the boxes, pretending not to feel the heat coming off her skin. You ever think about what people would say? She asked suddenly. I hesitated. About what? She gave a small laugh. Exactly. Then quieter, you're too young to worry about things like that. I'm not a kid. I didn't say you were. Silence. A soft hum from the record, the faint creak of the floorboards. Then, a knock at the door. Sharp, sudden. She froze. I stepped back, instinctively. Wait, she whispered, and crossed the room quickly. Through the peephole, she exhaled, a neighbor. She forgets her mail sometimes, she murmured, forcing a smile. She cracked the door open, exchanged a few polite words, then closed it again, leaning back against it for a moment longer than necessary. When she turned back, something had changed, the kind of tension you can't name without breaking it. Sorry, she said softly. I shook my head. Don't be. She took a step closer. Then another. Until we were close enough that her breath brushed my jaw when she spoke. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know. Her hand lifted, halfway, then fell again. She looked like she wanted to speak, but didn't trust her voice. The air between us pulsed with something that couldn't be undone. And when she finally moved, it wasn't away, it was closer, until her forehead almost touched mine, until the space between us was only a heartbeat wide. Neither of us crossed that final inch. But when she whispered my name, quiet, trembling, it was enough. We both knew the distance we were pretending to keep had already disappeared. I didn't see her for 3 days. No footsteps above. No music. Not even the soft clink of dishes that usually marked her evenings. It shouldn't have mattered, but every silence from upstairs pressed harder, heavier. By the 4th day, I told myself to stop thinking about it, to stop waiting. Then I saw her car pulling in, headlights cutting through the dusk. She stepped out slowly, hair pulled back, eyes tired. Before I could talk myself out of it, I was at her door. She opened it before I knocked twice. Oh, she said softly, as if she'd been expecting me and pretending not to. I was just making sure you're okay, I said. Her lips curved in something between a smile and a sigh. You shouldn't worry about me. I do anyway. She looked at me for a long second. Then she stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was dim, lit only by the lamp beside her couch. A bottle of wine sat half-finished on the table. She moved to pour another glass, then paused. Do you want one? I nodded. She handed it to me, our fingers grazing. We didn't talk at first. Just sat, the space between us thinner than it should have been. Rain started against the windows again, soft, insistent. You disappeared, I said finally. I needed to think. She swirled her glass slowly. About this. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. She turned toward me, her face half in shadow. You make me forget myself, she said quietly. And I don't know if that's good. My breath caught. Then why open the door? She exhaled, a shaky sound that wasn't quite laughter. Because I wanted to see if I could still say no. Her honesty hit harder than any confession. I set my glass down. She watched the movement, her eyes flicking to my hands, my shoulders, my mouth. The room felt smaller. Her breath slower. When I reached up, it wasn't planned, just instinct. I brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't move. Her eyes closed briefly, like she was letting herself feel it. You should stop, she whispered. I can't. She opened her eyes, wide, uncertain, wanting. You don't understand what people would think. I don't care what they think. You will, she said, and her voice cracked on the last word. I leaned in, close enough that my voice brushed her skin. Then tell me to go. She didn't. Her hand came up, trembling, and rested against my chest. I could feel her pulse through her fingertips, quick and uneven. This isn't supposed to happen, she said, though her hand didn't move. I know, I whispered. But it already is. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Her lips parted, just barely, and I could feel her breath on mine, warm and uneven. Then, before either of us crossed the space left between us, her phone buzzed on the table, loud, sharp, wrong. She flinched, pulling back. The moment broke like glass. We stared at each other, both breathing too hard, both knowing that whatever happened next couldn't be undone. The phone kept ringing. Neither of us moved to answer it. The phone stopped ringing, but the silence it left behind felt louder than anything else. She turned away, pressing her hand to her forehead. I should have, she began, then stopped. The glow of the screen pulsed against her wrist. A name I didn't recognize flashed once before fading out. Someone important? I asked, though I already regretted it. She hesitated. My ex-husband, she said finally, her voice steady in the way people's voices get when they are trying not to sound shaken. Oh? He's been calling lately. I haven't picked up. She set the phone face down. I think he knows I've been different. She didn't look at me when she said it, but I felt the weight of what she meant, different as in alive again. I didn't move. I couldn't. He wanted to see if we could start over, she continued, softer now. But I told him I wasn't sure I remembered how to be that version of myself. Something inside me twisted. I wanted to tell her I'd seen the other version, the one she was trying to find again, and it wasn't gone. It was right here, breathing in front of me. Instead, I said, and now? She met my eyes. Now I don't know what I want. Or maybe I do, and that's the problem. The air thickened. My pulse was too loud. I stood, pacing once, needing distance but not finding any. You could have told me, I said. About him. Her shoulders tensed. And what would you have done differently? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, nothing. I would have still shown up. Still reached for her. Still felt this impossible pull every time she looked at me. She stepped closer, closing the space between us until I could smell the faint wine on her breath. You think I planned this, she whispered. You think I wanted to feel. Her words broke off as her voice trembled. I didn't think. I just moved, instinct, again. My hand found hers, fingers sliding against her palm. Her pulse leapt under my touch. I don't care if you didn't plan it, I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. I just need to know if it's real. Her eyes shone, not tears exactly, but the kind of emotion that steals language. She shook her head once, as if to deny it, but then she whispered, barely audible, it's too real. I swallowed hard. Then why are we pretending it's not? She exhaled, shaky, and stepped back, just one step, but it felt like a chasm. Because if we don't stop now, we won't stop at all. I took a step toward her. She didn't retreat. The air between us hummed, sharp with fear, thick with something that felt like surrender. She brushed past me then, heading toward the door, but her hand grazed my arm as she passed, a fleeting touch that lingered long after she moved away. At the door, she stopped, hand trembling on the handle. Tomorrow, she said, not looking back. If you come by again, don't knock. Just, come in. The words hit harder than any confession. Because for the first time, she wasn't pushing me away, she was inviting what we'd both been trying not to want. I didn't sleep that night. Her words replayed in loops, if you come by again, don't knock. An invitation, or a warning dressed as one. By morning, I told myself I'd stay away. By noon, I was already walking up the stairs. The door was half open. Light spilled through the crack, soft, golden, the kind of light that makes everything look fragile. I hesitated at the threshold, my heart a slow, deliberate drum. "Come in," she said quietly, before I even knocked. She was standing by the window, barefoot, hair loose around her shoulders. No pretense this time. No careful distance. Just her, and the truth hanging between us. "I thought you wouldn't come," she said. "I told myself I wouldn't," I answered. "Didn't help." She smiled, small, tired, knowing. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." And yet, I echoed, taking a step closer. The air felt different, thicker, slower, like it was waiting for something. She turned toward me. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, the way people do when they've already made a decision they can't take back. Her hand lifted, hesitated midair, then rested lightly on my chest. I could feel her pulse through her fingertips, matching mine, uneven, too fast. "You make me feel," she started, then stopped. The words caught, fragile. Like I missed something important, and now it's standing in front of me asking to be seen. I closed the last of the distance between us. My hand brushed her cheek, slow, careful. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, like she was testing how it felt to let herself want. "You don't have to be careful," she whispered. "I don't know how else to be." She laughed softly, the sound trembling somewhere between relief and surrender. Then, without another word, she leaned in, not quite a kiss, not yet, just her forehead resting against mine, her breath mingling with mine, her fingers curling against my shirt. The world narrowed to that single, suspended heartbeat. "I've spent years choosing safety," she murmured. "I don't want to anymore." The admission broke something open, not loud, not dramatic. Just real. I moved closer, my hand at the back of her neck, feeling the warmth of her skin, the tiny shiver that ran through her. Her breath hitched. She didn't move away. "Then don't," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She looked up, eyes wide and soft, and for the first time, there was no hesitation. No pretense. Her lips parted, a breath, a question, and when our mouths finally met, it wasn't perfect or polished. It was hesitant, trembling, honest. The kind of kiss that felt like both a beginning and an ending. When she finally pulled back, she stayed close, her hand still against my chest, her voice unsteady. "This can't be simple," she said. "I don't want simple," I whispered. She nodded once, eyes searching mine. And in that small, quiet moment, I knew we finally understood each other. Neither of us had been looking for this. But both of us knew we'd never walk away the same. The morning light spilled through her window, catching on the edge of her curtain. Everything felt softer, the air, the silence, even the way she moved. We hadn't said much after last night. Words felt unnecessary, almost clumsy compared to the stillness we'd shared. But now, with the daylight creeping in, reality felt closer. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, legs tucked beneath her. I made coffee in her kitchen, pretending to focus on small things, the sound of the kettle, the smell of roasted beans, but really, I was trying to understand the weight of everything that had just changed. When I handed her the mug, her fingers brushed mine. She held on a moment longer than she needed to. "You don't have to stay," she said, voice quiet, steady. "I know," I said, sitting beside her. "But I want to." She looked at me, really looked, like she was searching for a reason to believe that was okay. "You realize what people will say," she murmured. "You're young." I cut her off gently. "You're you. That's all I care about." For a second, she almost smiled. Then her expression softened, something like peace passing over her face. I spent so long convincing myself that wanting more was foolish, she said. That after a certain point, love was for other people. And now? She leaned her head back against the couch, eyes half closed. Now I'm tired of pretending I don't feel alive when you walk into a room. I laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that comes from relief more than humor. Guess that makes two of us. We sat like that for a while, not talking, not planning, just breathing the same air. The world outside went on, cars, wind, voices in the distance, but here, everything slowed. At one point, she shifted closer, her shoulder brushing mine. I turned slightly, and she met my gaze. No hesitation this time. Just quiet acceptance. Her hand found mine, fingers threading together like it had always been meant that way. I don't know what happens next, she said. Then we'll find out together. Her smile came slowly, but it reached her eyes. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine, a soft exhale between us. No grand promises. No dramatic declarations. Just warmth. Connection. The unspoken truth that we had already chosen, and that was enough. Outside, the light grew brighter, spilling across her floor. She reached for my other hand, holding both now, grounding herself, or maybe grounding me. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't look guarded. She just looked present. And that was the moment I realized, whatever we were stepping into, it wasn't wrong. It was real. I squeezed her hand gently, and she leaned her head on my shoulder. Neither of us spoke again. We didn't need to. The silence said everything, that this, finally, was the distance neither of us wanted to keep anymore. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?